Assalamu alaikum everybody. मेरा नाम समर हसन है और मैं co-founder हूँ Epiphany की. So I'm the co-founder at Epiphany. Unfortunately for today, we will have to stick more to English because all of our guests and moderator, they're all, obviously they speak English fluently. They still have not yet learned Urdu for most of them. But obviously we can convince them to do that. So we're back with our monthly executive Baithak. This time around, it's very, very interesting. It's about the new normal for travel influencers. So the way we see it, obviously the world is no longer the same. We cannot travel the way we used to for the foreseeable future at least. Yet all of the people that we have with us today are not just adventure buffs. It's not just a way of living for them, but it's also a way of pursuing their careers. So let's listen to all of them and what they have to say. Plus, obviously, I've made a request for them to share their personal stories, how they ended up doing what they're doing now, and share different adventures that they've collected along the way. So today I'm super, super excited to introduce the moderator. Unfortunately or fortunately, I'm not the moderator for today, but we have Manal Assad, who's going to be moderating the program today. So thank you very, very much, Manal, and everyone else for joining in. And I'm going to zip up from now on.
Thank you, Samar, for passing the honor for me. Hopefully I can fit in her shoes and moderate a very interesting session for you today. So my name is Manal, or better known as the Manalist on social media. I'm a digital marketing consultant, and I call myself an experiential traveler rather than a travel influencer. I started my journey basically with digital marketing with social media, which allowed me to travel and experience the world. So I go around collecting experiences with different cultures, different people. And, basically we've all been hit with this pandemic and the lockdown. So all of us who basically live off of travel or, have travel as a huge part of our identity, have had to adapt to this new situation. So we have today very interesting panelists for you, travel influencers from around the world with different experiences, who are going to share what has this pandemic had an effect on their livelihood, on their lifestyles. So I'm going to pass the floor on to them in a little bit. Just remember that we're on Facebook Live, and if you want to have your questions answered by the end of this session, then post your questions there, and hopefully we can get to them in time. So without further ado, let's get started, perhaps with Valentine. Perhaps you want to share with us your experience so far.
Hi, my name is Valentine, and I'm from Montreal, Canada. My COVID experience so far has been interesting, to say the least. It is pretty much the first time I've been not moving in about 4.5 years. So it was, not gonna lie, a little bit claustrophobic at first to be in one place. I spent most of the pandemic in the UK. But it was good. I actually finally was able to sit down, put my business, my head in order. So it was kind of a forced sit down for me, which is extremely needed. Actually, you don't realize when you travel all the time, and when your life is fast paced constantly, sometimes to be able to take a step back and analyze everything is actually something quite positive.
It's true. What about you, John? Did you have the same experience where you're stuck somewhere you weren't supposed to be stuck for in a long time?
Actually, I canceled a trip to Dubai like a week before the global quarantine happened. So I knew that if I would have taken the trip earlier, then I would be stuck here I would be stuck in Dubai for the next 4 months. So I actually had to cancel my trips, including one trip to Saudi Arabia and one trip to Japan. So I'm stuck home as everybody else, but I don't travel as much as I used to do. So I'm perfectly fine staying indoors for weeks at a time because I focus a lot on my agency. So to me, it's kind of normal when you are an entrepreneur, and many entrepreneurs work from home. So to me, life has changed to a lesser degree than other people, but it's still unbearable.
Okay, that's good. I think Josh is having a different experience. Where are you right now, Josh? How has this affected you so far?
Hi guys, I'm Josh, co-founder of Dream Beach Media, and we're usually a UK-based creative agency, but I'm very grateful to say I'm currently in Split, Croatia, and we're working on projects out here with the team. So it's definitely affected us, and it's made us have to adapt to using a lot of sort of stock footage and sort of repurposing content for clients, instead of obviously getting out and just flying here, going there and doing the usual. And so it's been different, but to be honest, it's given us a lot of time to think, communicate deeper with clients and get to know them better and understand their sort of worries at the time. And obviously, yeah, adapt to the times. So it's been, obviously it's not great. It's been pretty horrible, but yeah, there's light at the end of the tunnel for sure.
I can imagine. I'm wondering if, Anam, you've had the similar experience, Girl with Green Passport, maybe you can share with us now. You're on mute.
Hi guys, this is Anam. I'm based in Karachi, and yes, it's been 4 months now. I think 4 months now since we've been in a lockdown here. And yes, a lot has gone down while we have, while we are staying indoors, but still a lot is going on in terms of, reflection, on personal side of the life as well as business. The business has definitely been affected, but for me, not so much, because for me, it's mostly digital marketing. So if anything, we have seen a little bit more commotion on that side. But yeah, travel-wise, it's been horrible. I was almost about to book a trip to Balkans before this happened. And I was supposed to travel in April. And yeah, so that pinches sometimes, but it's good. I think there's been quite a bit of positive side as well. I've gone back and kind of reflected at my content. I've decided new things for it. I've decided some new stuff for business. So yeah, it's been both ways.
All right, that's good. Safaa, I think you also run your own digital business and travel business. How have you seen the experience, both of them being affected by this?
I think, hi, by the way, my name is Safaa, and it's really nice to be here, first of all. Secondly, I'd say, yes, I'm not a full-time traveler, but however, one of my businesses is all about travel, creating retreats and everything. And we had just come back from Bali when the quarantine got announced, and I think that was just perfect timing. Definitely no plans in the foreseeable future at this point for one of my businesses, but the other business is a digital media agency. So definitely amping it up over there. For my own personal travel influencing content, I'm just kind of reusing my previous content and dreaming about when I can travel next.
All right. So I can see that for those of us who, let's say, the main focus is travel influencing, you've all had to reinvent your content. So how did you find, like adding value to your followers and as well to your, let's say, business connections who maybe were sponsoring you for trips, or, like your agencies, like that depend on your influence? How were you able to adapt to the situation and, create value during this time? Who'd like to share with us their experience? First, who depends on the travel influencing as a part of a livelihood, by raising hands? Yes, Valentine, I think just you. So maybe you can get started by telling us, how did you adapt?
Again, I think it was just, of course, a business have several sides to it. So it was just working on something different and learning how to. I haven't taken the time to just sit down and work on the administrative side of things, I guess. So it kind of forced me to do that, which was extremely beneficial. So it was just about, again, not reinventing, because again, it was necessary, but just taking the time to work on things that I normally don't have the patience to do.
So it was more like the boring part of the job rather than the fun part of traveling. We always seek this balance that, sometimes you're stuck in this uncomfortable situations when you're traveling. But again, the experiences that you get out of it, like sort of balances that or even tops it. But now it's like the focus more on the mundane things, on the administrative things, rather than on the fun parts. I think that was basically maybe the biggest change that we've had to adapt to, like as travelers during this pandemic. And I know that past this pandemic, when things go back to normal, that we might have to also stick to certain changes, So I'm wondering, what sort of, like change in behavior or change in your lifestyle that you've had to adapt during this lockdown that you feel that you would still keep after the lockdown, and what things you feel like you've gained like a new perspective, like of how to change things or how to appreciate things that you didn't appreciate before. So basically, yeah, like things that you think you would keep after the lockdown and things that now you would, like get rid of because of it. Maybe Josh, you would, Josh or John, who have something interesting to share
Josh
with
take
us.
on this.
Yes, John.
Sorry? Oh, I think it's obviously really good that everyone's taking more care of their sort of health and well-being, personal health and well-being for sure. And we've definitely found that recently that their markets have actually still been very busy for us, which is amazing. And just the whole pandemic has been, it's been awful. Obviously, it's been horrible for everyone. But I think I've seen quite a few companies and clients who've really sort of regained, they've been in a much stronger position, and they're passing on much better messages now because they're supporting a global cause, and also passing out these social media campaign messages and stuff which resonate with absolutely everyone.
Yeah. What about you, Explorer? You said that you weren't really traveling much before then. Do you think that you're going to be traveling more now, or do you feel like now settled that, maybe this is the new norm, there won't be so much traveling after this?
Well, before I answer that, we have to understand that what used to be normal before this is never going to come, back to normal again. Never. Yeah. We have to, this has been like a wake-up call for us to understand that, world-class events like this happen every 100 years or so. It's just the first time in our generation that this happened to us. But to the large extent of the human race, this is nothing new. So we just have to understand that we're going to have to put up to new norms of hygiene and how we relate to other travelers, and how we involve in constrained spaces where we share rooms with 100 or 1,000 other people, whereas in masses in churches or in airports or just places where large gatherings of people happen. But this is not something that is going to go back to normal at all. The question is, when can we resume our at least somewhat regular activities? The travel industry is going to be very affected for the next decade or so at the very minimum, if not for the rest of our lifetimes. And we just have understood that in one of the most impacted spaces in the travel industry is going to be air transportation, airlines, especially because there's many differences in this kind of transportation. The biggest one is that it's a place where we're the most in contact with other people, and the one where we are the least capable of moving or standing up or going somewhere else. So one of the first things that I think are going to happen is that airlines are going to start filling up their airplanes with at least 30 to 50% of their usual capabilities. But as far as traveling going back to normal, I don't think that's going to happen in our lifetimes anymore. I'm just hoping that the time map, if we could see it as so, is that first we're going to be doing road trips. Basically, the travel industry is going to inject, a lot of money into people getting to travel in, local, because that's the only thing that we can do so far. But as far as international traveling, intercontinental traveling, that's going to be the one's going to take the most amount of time.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely positives to what's happening now. I mean, sure, a lot of horrible things are happening, but we need to keep in mind that the travel industry was basically, for some countries, it is, like their livelihood depends on it. I was also in Dubrovnik in March, right before the lockdown. I was lucky that, like I finished my trip right before all the borders were closed. And I was surprised there was literally nobody there. Most businesses are closed, restaurants, hotels, which is normal for Dubrovnik in March, because they literally depend on the travel, like the tourism season, which starts in April. So you have a lot of small local businesses that depend on tourism, depends on travel to to survive for the end of the year once the tourism season is finished. I think maybe also Josh, you can see that now in Split. I'm assuming there aren't so many people there.
No, not at all. There's quite a few Germans are here, but to be honest, I feel like we're the one of the first British groups to be here, to be honest, which is obviously, yeah, we're allowed to be here, which is good. So all the insurances are in check, but yeah, it's sad to see, but it's gonna, hopefully it'll come back slowly, but I'm sure European travel will come back pretty
it's
fast.
courageous of you to be one of the first people sort of paving the way, you know, like to start traveling. I think another interesting, you know, like positive of this, we were supposed to have another panelist to talk about also more internal tourism, because I know that some countries, they're trying to promote basically people traveling locally even before the pandemic. Saudi Arabia is one of the examples, because I was born and raised there, and you know, like it's a great country that is not normally known as, you know, like a tourist destination. So I'm imagining that after this pandemic, there will probably be shift in travel destinations for where people will be traveling. I think it would be interesting to hear from Safaa or Anam on, you know, like maybe having Pakistan as, you know, like another travel destination that would be getting traction. Do we imagine that the, let's say, high risk countries, for example, Italy has been, you know, like such a popular tourist destination, but I'm imagining now people are not going to be traveling so much to Italy or maybe to France, but rather we don't hear so much about what happened maybe in Pakistan, and maybe that gives sort of an opportunity to, you know, are people traveling more in Pakistan right now? Do you feel that maybe people will be more interested in exploring these destinations? How is your experience so far with this? Do you promote your internal tourism? Do you see more people interested? Maybe you can share with us some of the stories, or at least, you know, like how do you, you know, like have your content dedicated to promote internal tourism?
Anam, would you like to take that?
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Sure. So about 2 weeks ago, somebody messaged me. I think she was a traveler from Iran, I suppose. And she was interested in traveling to Pakistan, and she was asking me if things are okay. And I was, you know, that message was, you know, it surprised me because things still were not better. If anything, they were, you know, the numbers were still increasing 2 weeks ago. So, so, you know, I think as a destination, Pakistan was picking up its pace as one of the upcoming destinations to travel to, especially when it comes to adventure travel. But unfortunately, obviously, because of these times and because of the fact that Pakistan right now, the numbers are increasing, the situation is not very good over here. Internal tourism, domestic tourism, and also international travelers' interest in our country, you know, it would lessen for a while until things go back to normal, and unless, you know, there is news and authentic news about Pakistan being, you know, declared safe to travel. And obviously a huge indication for that is to come as an announcement from our government, and, you know, embassies to start working against that, they start processing visas, airlines when they will resume their normal routes and their normal you know, flights. So I think all of these things will contribute to the fact that Pakistan is once again safe now, but this time, you know, it will be a question about the pandemic and not really the question about safety, as we knew as a problem that Pakistan suffered with. So yeah, once things resume, I'm hoping maybe from 2021, you know, Pakistan would be back on track to promoting tourism. And definitely, I think for us, the residents of Pakistan, I think local trips would be the first thing that we would go for. And as travel influencers, it would be the first thing that I would want to market, or I would want to create content on, or talk about, or inspire people to do. Because obviously when we talk about you know, domestic tourism, a lot of people in our country would be hit, I mean, as is the case globally, would be hit financially. So, you know, a lot of travelers wouldn't have as deep pockets when they come out of it. So I think, but you know, the itch to travel would be there. So definitely local travel or domestic travel would be something that I would love to talk about as soon as a situation gets better. And yeah, I definitely feel that Pakistan will catch up on, you know, its pace pre-COVID situations when it comes to attracting international travelers.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Safaa? What do you think, since you're also in the same country?
Yeah, I think I agree with Anam. It's definitely a situation where we're going to judge a country by what their number of cases are. And a lot of people who are not so adventurous and not so, risk takers are going to be a lot more scared to come to Pakistan. Fortunately, a lot of international travelers were coming into Pakistan, and definitely that was the betterment of Pakistan's image, which had been ruined previously. So all of a sudden we're going to go down a slump again. International travelers would not want to come right away. It's going to take another couple of years for it to pick up again. But what we can focus on is definitely domestic travel for Pakistanis to go within Pakistan to explore, and for the people of Pakistan to take more opportunities to explore their own homeland. At the same time, when we want to go abroad and we would want to go and travel to other places, Pakistanis need a visa pretty much for everything. So they're also going to judge us based on that, oh, you're coming from Pakistan, so maybe not so, okay for you to come inside our country. Like right now, yesterday, New Zealand had its first case again after 3 weeks because a Pakistani had flown to New Zealand. So there you go. We're going to be judged. It's going to be very
for
different.
Your reputation.
Not so good, but it's definitely going to be a challenge, like everything else is in life. However, travel influencers are definitely going to be people that everybody's going to look at and get the right source of information. And there's going to be definitely much more trust towards travel influencers, because right now, even people who do not love traveling like we all do, they're also itching to travel. They're like, oh, we took it for granted so much that we just want to go. As soon as this is over, I'm packing my bags and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. So all these people are going to, jump towards travel influencer content and be like, I want to go here where, Valentine went. I want to go here where Safaa went, or here and there. So, so it's like a balance that we will have to eventually strike in a couple of years.
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned a very important point. I think it's also now becoming a very global movement, which is diversity. And like traveling, like I think one of the things that now is getting finally a lot of traction in the travel industry is this sort of inequality when it comes to, traveling, let's say as a white traveler, or as a as a person of color, or even, like traveling with a strong passport versus a weak passport. I myself have a Lebanese passport. I think we're only allowed to go to 32 countries in the world without a visa, and not because they like us, just because they're open to everyone. I think you guys in Pakistan would have also the same, like experience. As you said, it's for us, it's so much more to when we want to travel somewhere to plan ahead and pay for visa, and maybe we're accepted, maybe we're not, and showing that we're worthy. So I'm wondering, like Valentine, sorry, like do you feel this privilege when you're traveling, or basically, how is it that we can all work together to bring more attention to this with the content that we would put about how it's like to travel, as someone with a strong passport versus someone with a weak passport, and bringing these like equal voices in the travel industry, that we're not just seeing things from, you're promoting destination that maybe half of the world can't even travel to so easily. So are you getting more awareness into this? Are you seeing more of this movement? Maybe Valentine, you can share more if that's something that has crossed your mind, and if you feel that this is something that you would address.
To be honest, I'm extremely lucky to have two passports. I have a Canadian and a French one. So it's just I've never really encountered a problem. If I know, by example, for Canadians to get into Dubai was kind of complicated, so I just came into my French passport. So I guess I'm really too lucky to be making a statement here, and I'm sorry.
Maybe John, you have some experience, like do you see that you guys, like how would you bringing more, like voices into your platforms to show that, yeah, like there are two sides to travel? Is it something that, you know, you've mentioned yourself, there is this global movement and it's definitely affecting how travel is going to happen. So how are you guys getting on board of this movement?
Yes, definitely. Well, the first thing is that we as influencers have one task during the pandemic, and that is to keep people daydreaming and thinking of going places. That's our main goal right now. Remember, just as a couple of you guys mentioned earlier, you're going crazy staying home. Imagine all of our millions of followers, how they're doing. So it's our first task to entertain them and to give them some kind of hope, because travel is the first and foremost industry that was lost during the quarantine, the first one. And obviously it's our main source of income, our main goal, and our main drive behind what we do. So that's the number one thing. Now, the second is we also have to realize another thing, which is many of the things that we show, many of the places we show, most people will never go. Yeah. Just because there is a lot of logistics involved, you know, finances, politics involved. Maybe you have the money and the passport to go somewhere, but maybe there is a civil war going on. So, you know, there's a lot of factors happening. The main thing we can do is just, as you said, use our voices to convey what we think and what's happening with the world. Many of the issues that we should be speaking about, many of them aren't even race involved, they're just politically involved. But I've seen this issue many times. I only have one passport, which is from Mexico. I think it's like the 30th strongest passport in the world. So I still have like 20, 30 countries that I would have to fight over, you know, bureaucracy for months to get a paper together. You know, I lived in Russia for 2 years, and every time I had to renew my visa, I had to take a flight back to the US and renew my visa. Whereas if I would have had an American or you know, European passport, I wouldn't have to do that. So I know the pains of that, and that doesn't have to do anything with color or gender. It has to do with, as I said, with politics. So I think as long as we see the world as a place with, you know, political boundaries rather than geographical boundaries, you know, we're still going to be imposing these penalties on people that have nothing to do with politics at all. They just want to see new places. And it's very saddening because some of the most beautiful places in the world are right in the middle of political issues. And, you know, they are the countries that deserve the least to be experiencing this. You know, places like, you know, Syria, places like Afghanistan, places where the very, you know, start of our culture as humans started, and you know, we aren't taking care of it. And other countries that are doing basically nothing because, again, there's a lot of politics involved. And you know, it's like you want to call out on somebody else, but you're scared of them doing something back to you, you know, imposing certain restrictions to you. So I think we're very moved or not moved by the fear of you know, waking up a bigger factor in here. But as a collective of people, I think if we all jump into this together, I think we can definitely do a change.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely see that there is more of a grim happening in the world, and it's reflecting on social media, that now you turn on your news feed and it's all negative news, bad news, you know, like a lot of things happen. And I think part of our, as you said, you know, like our job as travel influencers is to entertain, you know, like it's, we can present some sort of an escape for people that I myself, for example, when I go to my timeline, I don't want to see bad news anymore. I don't want to, you know, like, yeah, I know that the world has a lot of horrible things, you know, like going on, but I also know that there are gorgeous places in the world that are left to explore and you know, like cultures to be experienced. So I think we do sort of a like a public service or a community service by sort of shedding the light on positive things that we can experience. So maybe now we can turn it a bit more positive. We're getting already questions from the audience. I think maybe we can start with Josh. Someone is asking, what is your favorite destination in UK? Being English yourself, and we're promoting internal tourism. What has been a fun experience for you there?
I'm very torn between two beautiful places in the UK. We've got Newquay in Cornwall, which is a fantastic surf town. We've been very lucky to do quite a few projects down there, and it's amazing. It's like being in the south of France. It's a little dreamy spot. But I think my personal favorite has got to be the Lake District. If anyone's been to the British Lake District, it's amazing, and nobody really knows about it, which is why we try and do a lot of sort of passion projects there, if that makes sense. So even if it's not like a paid job or anything, we just go there and just be like, this is a beautiful part of the world. No one really, an international audience don't really know at all about. Everyone thinks of the Alps, the Dolomites, and these beautiful places in Europe, but the Lake District is phenomenal. If anyone's ever thought about going, I highly recommend, and yeah, let me know and I'll give you my favorite locations to go and visit.
Right, it's definitely a place to visit. I've been there. I think I've climbed Scaffold Pike, and I'm not at all a climber, but I made it, and it was really gorgeous. You know, like so. Part of why I call myself the experiential traveler, as I said, because we go there, we collect experiences rather than just pictures in front of gorgeous places or like, you know, places that have been most popular. I think Valentine, you have a lot of experience with this, you know, like adventure and having experiences. Everyone is interested in knowing, you know, like about your spear fishing, and I know you're planning something soon. Maybe you can tell us more about it.
Well, before I get into that, I just want to say that Josh is completely right. I just spent the entire quarantine in the Dartmouth area. I rented a caravan in a dairy farm for about 3 months, and it is I think it's been declared an area of outstanding beauty or something. And as I saw it pass from winter to spring, all the flowers around, all the nature around, it was honestly one of the most beautiful places I've seen in the world. And it was mind-blowing. This whole area, the Cornwall area, the Dartmouth area is I cannot recommend it enough. It's fantastic. My mind is blown.
How about spearfishing? Do you feel a lot of people are getting interest in it, people trying it for the first time, or is it always experienced divers?
It's a little bit of everything. So basically, the way I got into it was really by pure coincidence. So I was living in London, and so I used to be a lawyer. Then I worked in finance for about 6 years in London, and then I kind of stumbled across spearfishing because of friends that I met there, and I kind of fell in love with the whole concept of catching my own food. So I love cooking, and for me it was just about just discovering this new connection with the food I was eating. And then the day I caught my first fish, I knew my life was completely changed. And then about 4 years ago, I decided to quit my job, sell everything I had in London. I moved to Florida, and now I'm between Florida and Canada. And all the seafood that I consume is all the seafood that I catch myself.
So that saying that, you know, like give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man how to fish, he eats for for his own life. That really applies to you. I think there's a lot to say here. I mean, it's not just like a sport or an adventure or a way to travel. It's also a very sustainable way of life. Let's say, you know, like we try to do as much as we can in order to like bring sustainability into our lives and be mindful of how we travel. Do you think that we're going to be seeing more people being like very mindful about how they travel and their impact on travel, on you know, like the places they travel to? Do you have experiences with it? Do you find people like interested not just in it as a sport, but rather as a way of like, oh, I can feed myself in this way? Or
no, definitely, because I think there's definitely a strong movement when it comes to where our food is from. And it's starting to be an interest for people, and especially that now with social media, a lot of bad things have been exposed. So people are more and more interested into changing the way they eat and the way they actually get food. And I think it's really good. And I think with the job a lot of influencers around the world has been to show outside of the resort as well how there's a lot of pollution, how there's a lot of, we do show the good things, but also we do show the bad things, which kind of, it's a good thing, because I think we're showing the world that it needed change. People kind of need to live differently. And again, we live in a generation right now when we realize that everything we've been doing since we're kids has been kind of wrong in a way, that everything we've been eating, everything we've been playing with, and all the clothes we've been buying, everything turned out to be really bad. So we kind of have to reinvent ourselves. So there's definitely more interest when it comes to that. People want to take care of themselves, especially after the pandemic. It's a lot of people send me messages being like, oh, okay, yeah, now I get it, the whole being self-sufficient thing. It's really good.
We need to learn how to hunt, you know, like in case there is an apocalypse. I mean, there's a lot to say about our generation. Yeah, maybe we have not had the worst experience compared to the previous generations, but we're still always like, you know, like becoming more and more aware of challenges that we have to, you know, like overcome, especially, you know, like in different areas, not just sustainability. I think people are interested, for example, Safaa, you know, like how you started a digital business and also a travel business in a male dominated, you know, like a market. So I'm pretty sure that you have your own experiences to share in that.
Yeah, definitely. I think any industry is male dominated. I don't find any other industry where women are leading, but it came with its own set of challenges, not just for the travel business, but for the digital business as well. It's very hard because people don't expect a woman to take lead, for example. So when I started going into meetings for either my travel work or my digital work, they would be like, oh, you know, where's your boss? And I'm like, this is it. This is it. You're looking at it. So I think in a any male dominated industry, I think it's very, very important for you to stand your ground, not let your gender make you feel weak. No matter what everybody else is saying. Like, for example, I feel like male travel influencers get a lot of praises on their YouTube channels or their Instagram, and they're very focused on to their questions, such as, you know, where have you been? What are these adventures that you're looking into? And as soon as there's a female travel influencer, questions go towards like, oh, how do you take care of your skin? Or what makeup do you carry with? You know, and these are such gender stereotypical questions. And I guess I'm sure everybody has sort of faced that. Any woman in any industry has faced sort of those. Oh, how do you travel if you're a woman? Oh, you're married. How do you travel? What about settling down? Oh, well, you know, traveling is for me settling down. That's my own idea of settling down. So I think it's very hard. But when you eventually get through the challenges, it's so worth it.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely see, like, maybe as females and even females from like these different cultures where you get this sort of negative comments, and, you know, like, or as you said, you know, like, how do you travel if you're married? Like, how do you travel if you're single? How are you traveling?
Does your husband let you?
Yeah.
I'm like, my husband doesn't need to let me.
Exactly. And I don't know if you have had, I'm pretty sure the same experiences like this. Maybe can you tell us more about, you know, like, people's criticism, you know, like as a female travel influencer from a country like Pakistan?
Yes, definitely same experiences. 100% agreed with Safaa that, you know, people are more interested in asking about your clothes, your makeup, your skin, and all of those things. And then, you know, when you're projecting this image of, you're actually projecting what you're doing, that is traveling around the world, and, you know, you're earning and saving and traveling. So people in Pakistan, majority of them, unfortunately, they think that, either you were born with a silver spoon, or you were, you're a trust fund kid, or your husband is, really rich, like you married rich. And, you know, that's how all this travel lifestyle is from. They do not understand that somebody could be self-made, especially a woman. And also, the understanding of a woman, even if she has all the means, the understanding of a woman traveling, by herself or even with friends is not there. So they just are not able to comprehend. And still a lot of people think that I don't maybe live in Pakistan, because they think that, it is just not possible from Pakistan to execute it. So you really have to explain them. And some people just outright, slide this question in your DM that, where are you getting all this money from? Sometimes it's just as honest as that. They just straight up ask you that question. So it is really difficult. You have to first hold your nerves. You have to sometimes choose to ignore. You have to sometimes choose to explain, because obviously, you also have to inspire people, with some reasonable, with some logical reasoning, I would say. So So yeah, like a huge part of my content is, you know, just repeating about, you know, this thing that, yeah, it is possible, you know, where there is a will, there is a way. You can make this lifestyle happen for yourself.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, even now, people are seeing more like influencers and travel influencers, and it's not something that was usual before. And a lot of people are curious, you know, like, how do you become a travel influencer? How is it possible? Explore, you might have something to share on that, because I know that you have like the biggest following. I don't know how long ago you started with your you know, like, let's say, travel journey, that you were able to get such a following and have such an influence on, you know, like, people. Can you maybe share with us some of like tips, and we'll also hear from the rest of you basically on how you became sort of a travel influencer in a sense.
Right. Well, I think there is two scenarios in which people become travel influencers. Either is one because they already traveled before and then they jumped into Instagram and they simply shared the already natural behaviors. And then there is the other people who learn about travel influencers and then they quit the regular jobs and they try to become one. I'm in the first scenario. I was already traveling before Instagram was even a thing. So I've been to over 30 countries. I'm 26 years old, by the way. I didn't introduce myself. But I started traveling and taking photos, you know, of my trips before I even had an Instagram account. But it is thanks to Instagram that I, you know, nurtured myself into becoming a better influencer. And by that, I mean taking better photos, explaining better the situation of a place that I'm going to, and then, you know, making decisions on how to tell people, or rather, where to recommend people to go. And the first thing is, when we influence on people, we have to understand that there is a consequence, either positive or negative of that. People will either make a positive or a negative out of what we're recommending them. So if we're, for example, if we go somewhere in northern Norway and we see a secluded beach and it's something very private, something very unbeknownst, and where, you know, it's only like a hidden gem for the locals, and then we are in this rush of telling everybody about this place, well, it'll become a point where it will not be secret or hidden anymore. And it will happen what has happened to Paris and Venice and many other mainstream locations, in which basically the place has been torn apart by the huge amount of tourism. So it's a very, you know, rough decision whether making and thinking, should I tell people to come here or should I keep it to myself? Because, you know, it's a kind of, you know, give or take. If I tell people to come here, a few people will enjoy it, and then 20 years from now, it will be, you know, rotten down, as if it's our nature as humans, you know, to choose and go and fill a place with garbage. But I would say that how do you become a travel influencer? You have to have your own content, and you do have to have a certain, you know, photography or video skill. I've been asked this like many times. You don't learn anything, you know, in the travel business by, you know, taking courses and then deciding to start. You learn, you know, during the process. You have to go and take a trip, and you have to do the mistakes and learn, you know, during this event. You don't have a certificate. There is no travel influencer certificate that you have to achieve before you start, you know, approaching businesses and brands and start making money of hotels that are paying you to, you know, to stay there. The only thing that works, as what I've seen, is trial and error, and maybe getting advice from other people who have started before you. But that's the only thing, you know. Get started and see what works, and you know, mistakes also, you know, are a huge, you know, curve of experience.
Yeah.
I think with the quality of cell phone these days too, it makes it a little bit more accessible to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like we were on a trip to Switzerland, and we had a camera, like a professional cameraman, and he had this like $50,000 gear in a backpack and taking his time to take these amazing pictures. And we had another guy with us who's just taking pictures with his iPhone and posting right away and getting so many likes. And they were like just, you know, like competing the whole time about how like now, you know, like, do I really need to be a photographer anymore and like invest in this gear, or is it simply enough just to have my phone and you know, like, and just take very like creative pictures? I don't know, Josh, if you want to also share with us your techniques, or basically how you also differentiate yourself and your content, and or, you know, for someone to become a travel influencer.
Absolutely. Well, our sort of route in, well, myself and my co-founder Alex, our route into a travel lifestyle was very, very strange. We both used to be in a band for around 12 years, and we were signed to different management groups, but we never earned a penny. So we had to learn to take the videos and photos for the band, and create the content on a tripod, obviously, for the band. And then we didn't have to pay for expensive photographers to do that. So that got us into the whole creative game for sure. And then from that, to be honest, it was a quick one-way flight to Bali, as everyone does when they're 18. And took a video, and then we luckily got signed up to Lumix UK as their travel ambassadors. So that kind of gave us the route into travel, and then off we went to some incredible destinations to produce content for them. And that was kind of our route into it. And then obviously Dream Beach Media, the agency, could have formed around that, and that's where it's been. But for sure that it's been, we're incredibly grateful to do what we do every day. That's the first thing, and we absolutely love it. But I think becoming a travel influencer, you have to, like, I always think the storytelling side of things is a lot more important than the quality of the camera. If you can storyboard a campaign or think of the shot before you go and do it. We've worked with so many different people who have different techniques, but we always find like the most authentic and real experiences get portrayed best when you've planned it before, but you're also having a great time, and everyone's not everyone's staged, everyone's just having a good time, and then the real experiences come across through there. But yeah, that's our technique for sure.
Okay, so according to John, to be a travel influencer, focus on photography. According to Josh, start in a music band. Yeah, start your career in music. But yeah, that's good. I think definitely photography plays a sense. I think Valentine, maybe you have a different experience. Do you find that focusing on maybe like a niche, you know, like that it gives you this sort of like authority in a certain like way? Maybe you can tell us about your experience.
Well, I think what Josh was saying is very true, because I have literally no talent in photography whatsoever. I tried, it's just not my thing. But then again, it's even though with having again a lack of talent, when I was in a fantastic setup, when I was having a good time, you can see that and the photo when this just. I took photo with my iPhones, like an older iPhone, and it turned out amazing just because there was a story behind it. It's just because I was explaining why I was there and what I was doing there. So I think it's more about, there's a lot about authenticity. Oh, that was a hard one for me. I think, and when it comes to sharing content online, and people see that as well. As you can see, if you on a beautiful beach, you can have the best photographer in the world. If you just posing like this, it's not going to be as interesting if you're really having fun and you smile is genuine and you can see you're having a good time. So it's all about, photography is a lot about sharing emotion, not only about having a good camera, I think.
Yeah, like an authentic experience. I think, Safaa, also you would have something to say, because I've seen like your videos, you're sharing like content, not necessarily just in travel, but also like day-to-day tips. So do you find that is also a way to becoming an influencer, whether just channeling that energy into your passion or whatever you want to feel like you're an influencer of? How was your experience in that?
I believe I started my public Instagram journey, inspired by travelers of the world, but soon realized that because of my green passport, I was not going to be able to travel to all these places so frequently. And of course, my work eventually wanted me to be stationed in one place. So starting from like a journey of travel influencer, I moved towards, creating more content regarding how to, set up your own business, or how to be, in the workforce, and what kind of challenges you can come across and how do you deal with them. And I think what quarantine did for a lot of people is pretty much the same, because they did not have a lot of travel content and opportunities to create new travel content. People started talking about and slowing down in the process and started talking about other things. And I think that's the beauty of being an influencer, because you're not exactly a business or a magazine. You're an influencer, and of course, you don't have just one mode. You're not just a traveler. There's so many different layers of a person. You're a traveler, you're someone who's probably interested in business, or you're someone who's probably interested in editing and video making. And then in this quarantine, all these people who have these massive amount of followers are looking at these other layers of these influencers. So I took my time in quarantine to kind of muster up the courage to become more of a video person. I am not trained in doing great photography. I usually, every time I go to a really fancy place, I always hire a local photographer and tell them to take like nice pictures of me. Otherwise, I just pretty much use my iPhone. And right now I'm creating content with my iPhone. So I don't think as much as, yes, good gear and all of that stuff really matters, you can also create content with whatever you have. It's not basically a tick mark that you must become a travel influencer with a lot of gear. And I really agree with Valentine. Like, it's not about just a picture where you're just smiling.
Yeah.
It's basically, you're an influence because people look up to you about what you're thinking and what you're doing. And you have to explain. You can't be like, oh, wearing a polka dot dress. And you'll be like, okay, fine. But I'm wearing a polka dot dress, thinking about when I can take it out for a spin into the real world, and now making my matching mask to come up with, the new norm. So yeah, I definitely started my journey from a different perspective, and coming to now creating more content about how to write an email, because a lot of people struggle with that apparently.
That's the first time I hear. What about you, Anam? How is your, like, what tips do you have moving forward for people now starting to be travel influencers with limited travel?
I think if you want to become a travel influencer, if in these times you've decided that you want to do this, the first thing is that you have to wait. If you're starting from scratch, obviously travel has to go back to a certain frequency for you to be able to start off creating travel content, if that's strictly how you want to position yourself. But however, if the way your life is structured right now, you have some extra time on your hand and you want to utilize that time to create content and see if content creation is for you, then I would say do not wait for travel to happen, right? I would say that, as Safaa pointed out, this is something that I also realized during pandemic about myself, that, okay, travel is not there. People do not want to, necessarily hear about travel planning. So, but who am I beyond travel? There are other shades to my personality beyond travel as well. So maybe I can include that in my content, So I think if somebody wants to become a travel content creator, but right now obviously travel is not there, they can start sharing about their lifestyle. Maybe they can, learn a few things about content creation in this time while they have time. So, and then, they can later, when travel starts happening, they can later on switch from, lifestyle content or anything that they are passionate about other than travel. They can switch from that to travel then. Because see, at the end of the day, even people who travel regularly, what are they doing? They're marketing a lifestyle, right? For them, it's a travel lifestyle. So, and we all have pretty much the same lifestyle these days, right? We're staying at home, we're cooking, we're eating food, we're, some days we're all struggling with motivation, some days we're really motivated, we're working out indoors. So our lives, kind of have a similar pattern or structure these days. And I think it's completely, absolutely okay for you to, contribute how you're doing these same things your own way. What is your day like? What is the view from your window like? What is your yoga mat like? So I think you can start off from there, and whenever travel opens up, you can see, you can maybe apply those things that you learned creating content indoors to when you go outdoors.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see, as you and Safaa said, that as travel influencers, we're humans at the end of the day. We have a personal brand. We're not like a company selling one product and that's it. We have to stick to it. You know, we have a lot of layers behind us that, you know, we can shift to. I mean, I myself wouldn't call myself a travel influencer, but because of my, let's say, at the beginning of my career in social media, and then, you know, like getting interest in social media, and then getting invited to travel to different locations to attend a conference, or, you know, like to meet with companies, and then you start getting interest in your, you know, like people getting interested in your travel career. And so it wasn't like the main focus. And then once we were sort of locked down at home, I found myself reverting, okay, what can I do now? I mean, of course, it's for us, we have the liberty. I found myself reverting back to gaming. So I wonder, what did you go into when you felt like, okay, I can't travel. There is nothing new for me to talk about travel. What sort of hobbies and interests did you know, like focus on most? Maybe we start with Valentine, then we move ahead.
Well, I think that to this stage, it's really important to mention the backside of being a travel influencer. I know it's really, especially when you look at Instagram, it's very easy to think that all we do is travel and have a good time and have a drink on the beach. But it's the biggest thing when it comes to doing that is really the hard work behind it. Is, you know, you don't see the hours spent behind a computer before you get to that trip, and this is the key of becoming a travel influencer, is the hours you're going to spend behind a computer making things happen, reaching out to company, getting no's all the time, and keep pushing through. And it's a lifestyle that does require a lot of sacrifices. You very rarely see your friends and family. You're very often on your own. You never sleep in your own bed. You travel with a really small amount of stuff, so you have to really downsize everything that you own pretty much. So there is also, I'm not going to call it a downside. I'm more going to call it maybe like a sacrifice to be made if you want to do that. So I think that's important to mention that it's not just all traveling and being happy and having a pina colada on the beach. There's a lot of things behind it.
So I got to completely agree with that. I think people get a little bit starstruck by seeing things from the outside, like the lifestyle on Instagram and all these beautiful photos, but they don't realize that we've all got to learn how to be accountants. We've got to learn how to market on LinkedIn and just be business owners as well as editors, as well as accountants. And there's so many, 15-hour days where you literally just sat at a laptop and eating whatever you got near you in vicinity of your computer, and just drinking as much coffee as you can because you've got deadlines from a client, and you've got, the next day you're doing a sunrise shoot, and then you're also coordinating a trip with other people at the other side of the world. And like, there's so much people don't see. And obviously personally, we don't show that. We obviously like to show the sparkly stuff because people do enjoy seeing that. But it has made me think people probably need to see more of what all of us do as business owners, as content creators, as influencers. There's a lot of hours and there's a lot of sacrifice. And I personally don't see my family much. I'm very lucky that I do travel with my girlfriend, so that she works with me as well. So I get to see her, or else I probably wouldn't even see her. And people need to see that. And I think it's something maybe we all should post more about, is that it's not that sexy, but the photos of us, we're emailing all day, we're calling, we're Zoom calling constantly. And yeah, it's quite a small little bubble we're all stuck in as well, when we're not on a beach enjoying ourselves. And when we're doing productions, people always ask us, do you enjoy it? And of course we enjoy it, we absolutely adore it, but we never sit down and lay on a beach and like relax. It's always like, right, we're gonna go chase this location, catch that sunset, where are they going, who's following them with the camera, blah blah, stick to the script. There's so much to think about that we only ever relax probably once it's edited, and then we can have an extra couple of days in that place and relax. So there's a lot on the outside people don't see, for sure.
Yeah, and I think you have to enjoy all of it, because if you only enjoy the trips without enjoying all the work that comes behind it, then you're going to be unhappy doing it, sadly. And just to think about the fact that, to be completely transparent, I barely made money for the first 2 years I started doing that. And it was just about, again, just working and pushing through. And, when you have $4 in your bank account and you're like, oh shit, how am I gonna eat this week? And you're like, you have to love what you do, because if you don't love what you do, then all of those hard moments are going to be very hard to overcome.
Yeah, it's,
completely.
I think what Josh said, that maybe we should start showing more of the backside of travel, you know, like in travel influencing, the times when you're just sitting on your laptop for so many hours, because I think people now are, you know, like they come at the end of the journey and then they want to know like, oh, how do I become travel influencer? It's so nice. It's so interesting. They don't see that, you know, like you've had to fight for many years with $4 in your account to get to that point. They think right away, I'll become a travel influencer and then I'm chilling at the beach. And, you know, I think, you know, for most of us, it's only that picture that you post or that video that you post. It's just like a sort of an end result of a long time. I mean, not to complain, it's still like very nice to travel and have these experiences, but at the end of the day, it's just like any other line of work where there is a lot of hard work behind it. I don't know if John, you want to add more to that point as well, about what's happening in the background of becoming this travel influencer, how sort of it affects your life if you're going around. Do people recognize you? And, you know, it becomes a bit of, I don't know, like if you have something particular that's happened to you in that sense.
Yeah, well, as you guys said very well, being a travel influencer is, you know, just, you know, red roses and what people think that is an easy life. And I've had this instance in many cases where I invite friends or girlfriends to trips with me. And, you know, 1 month into the trip, they go back to their homes because they couldn't, you know, tag along with me. And I see this in many cases when I'm taking photos, and very well, I will make a good point with every one of you guys. I know a lot of amazing photographers who suck at travel influencing. And I know a lot of people that have absolutely no, you know, no photo skills that are killing it on Instagram. It's not just a sense of how good you are at this, it's also a matter of luck and having an eye for understanding what your audience wants. So by saying that, when saying that, when it comes to, you know, doing a trip and you go somewhere, there's a lot of patience involved. And to the people that ask me how to become a travel influencer, you know, many people join in because they said, well, I want an easy life. I want to chill by the beach all the time. And I said, that's not what I do most of my time. That's as you guys said, that's what you see, you know, in front of the camera. That's what you see in the videos. But you don't understand that for every 1 hour of video that I shoot, I spend another 24 behind my computer editing that. It's a very difficult lifestyle. I did it from 2015 to 2018, and you know, I was literally trying with this you know, luggage for 4 years, and I just couldn't bear it anymore. So I decided to, you know, stay at home and just you know, build a regular life and then just travel whenever I would feel like. But it's definitely not easy, and it's been the instance where I have to put out my camera and literally spend 1 hour taking one photo. But that's where people, you know, really shine or not. When people say, hey, can we just go somewhere to the next place, and I said, no, I still don't have the shot that I came to take. And, you know, I always tell people, if you're not patient with me, you can just, you know, continue walking down the path, and then I'll just, you know, join you in 1 hour as I finish. But it's definitely a path where you need to learn patience. And if people are sold on the idea that if you're a travel influencer and you have 1 million followers, your life will be resolved, absolutely not. I've actually been more stressed than ever in any other business as of being a travel influencer, because there is a lot of you know, social pressure, peer pressure, follower pressure. You skip a day of posting and people are already bashing on you. Hey, did you die? What happened to you? And, you know, the Instagram algorithm will also punish you on that. So people think that when you're marrying into this lifestyle, you know, half of your troubles will get resolved. That's the whole opposite. It's a culture where you have to be very, you know, you have to be very military about the things that you do. You have to be very precise. You have to be on time with everything. When you travel, people don't realize that, you know, you're carrying 3-4 bags worth of equipment or gear or clothes for your models or things that you're doing. And all they see is the pretty side of things, but there's definitely a lot of headaches involved in this.
I mean, you're also like always, you know, putting yourself in unusual situations and unknown situations that where you might, you know, encounter risks, where your safety might be endangered. We're getting a question so much for you, Valentine. People want to know how many times have you been attacked by sharks, or, you know, I think they just want, you know, like 2-3 people are asking, you know, like, have you been attacked by sharks? Were you ever really in danger?
Several times. It's it's kind of part of the whole. I mean, I spend a lot of hours in their territories, and I mess with their food. So of course, sometimes they come around. Actually, in the industry, we call them the taxmen, because very often they're gonna try and just gonna go and just steal your fish off you. I'm actually going next in about a week. I'm going to the Bahamas for 3 weeks, and it's one of the most sharkiest places I've ever seen. And it's just part of it. You just learn how to deal with them. And when I like to say that sharks are a little bit like dogs. When you enter the water, if they're aggressive, you're gonna know straight away just by the way they swim, just by the way their fins are. Or the fins are pointing down is because they're in an aggressive mode. So it's just about judging what's around you. And if the shark seems aggressive, well, you just go back on the boat and we just change spots. We just don't even want to risk it. So it's just, you learn how to deal with them. You learn how to have them around. As soon as you catch a fish, you have a fish in your hand. You have to really look around and making sure that they like to come from your dead angle. I don't want to scare anybody. Sharks normally won't attack you. They won't come near you. Very often I had my camera on the water and I was trying to film it, and I was literally chasing it on the water, and the shark was like, hey, what do you want? And they just swim away because they're not interested in us whatsoever. Of course, when you mess around with a bloody fish, and it's a different story, but you get used to it. I was really scared when I first started. I was actually scared of the water. I was scared of swimming when I first started. So it was really about overcoming all of that. But again, it's the same thing as if you jump out of an airplane to go skydiving, you know, after 150 times, you're not scared anymore. And now sharks are part of it. If a shark comes too close, I'm just like, just go away, and you just push them away. And then it's, oh, it's all about habits.
To fight sharks basically by the end of it. I mean, yeah, there is a lot to say basically about a lifestyle as a traveler. You're putting yourself in these situations. There is a lot of reward, but there is also risk. I wonder if you also have had, you know, like dangerous situations or uncomfortable situations you'd like to share with us before. I think we're almost anyway towards the end. But we want to finish on a positive note, but tell us if...
I also fell to the water when I was living in the Arctic Circle. I fell with my camera. It was like 3 a.m. and I was shooting the Northern Lights, and well, obviously it was completely dark. I was with a friend and I fell into the water, and my camera was attached to my tripod. And when my friend rushed into me and trying to save me, I told him, save my camera. I don't matter, just take my camera because it has the photos. And then I noticed that, you know, I probably wasn't the first person to be there, and I probably wasn't also the first person to fall into the water in that place. And I was wondering how many cameras more people have fallen here. It's, you know, just as it happened in cenotes in Mexico, where I was jumping out of a cenote. It was like 18 meters. How much is that in feet? Is that like 60 feet high?
About 60.
We know more meters than feet, by the way.
Yeah, so I jumped like 60 feet into the water, and I lost my watch, and the cenote was 80 meters deep. And then one of the cenote you know, locals, they told me that every month they come back with diving gear and they collect all the watches from travelers, and they just sell them in the market like a month later. That's how they make their money.
It's a smart business model.
Oh yeah, they pick up a lot of Rolexes. It's a very profitable business.
Wow.
Yeah. But what I've noticed is that in many instances, us as travel influencers, we put ourselves in risk, sometimes because we are perfectly knowledgeable in the kind of risk we're taking, and we know we can overtake it with the amount of responsibility and gear that we have. But other times I've noticed that we do stupid things just for the Instagram, you know, likes.
Yeah.
And there's been instances in which people have died because of advice or things they saw somebody else do online, whether they were, you know, experts or they were familiar with the situation. But you know, there's a lot of things that we put ourselves in risk, that sometimes we think, well, I'm an expert in this, therefore everybody else must be. But you know, most instances that's not the case. You know, you don't have to go to the extremes as you know, deep diving or something like that. Just the fact of, you know, climbing a hill, you know, you can still break your ankle in there. So what I always tell my followers is that every place that you go, you have to take into advice your age and your physical being, and you know, being honest about how much of these things that we recommend you can actually physically, do without dying in the trying.
It's interesting. I hope nobody else almost also died during one of their adventures. No, does anyone have an interesting story? Maybe Safaa or Anam, like, do you feel, guys, you're in the spotlight, so maybe it's not a danger to your life from a shark or from falling off a cliff, but you feel that there is a negative side where you said, like, people might be criticizing, people might be, like, it's just you're living your life in public then, like, and once you put your life in public, then you feel like people are going to be questioning anything that you're saying, and like in how you live your life, and they feel like sort of at liberty to give you advice on how to live your life. Did you encounter that, or?
So I think generally it happens quite a bit that you have to think about what you're saying or what you're portraying, because you understand that every bit that you share about your life, it becomes public then, and then people will have their opinion. So generally in every situation, in every circumstance, you have to sort of put that filter. Sometimes you decide to share it unfiltered because you want that moment or that thought to go raw, and you are open to hearing out all kinds of opinion on it. And that thought or that perspective is you feel so strongly for it that you think that, regardless of what people may say or think about it, this is me. And I have to say it out loud. So sometimes you do it, but then sometimes there are some things or thoughts or moments that are private. So you filter them down, or you tone them down, and you share part of it. And so I think, you have to apply that lens, and you have to accept it, that whatever you do decide to share online, even if it's about your personal life or about anything, people will have a comment on it. So you have to be ready, and you have to decide how much am I going to share and what am I going to keep private.
Yeah, that's definitely a strategy. Safaa, do you feel almost having the same experience, or do you filter a lot?
Definitely did not swim with the sharks or did any cliff diving. I am probably the most scared person you've ever met. I don't even take road trips because I get dizzy, and I haven't even explored up north of Pakistan because I'm so scared. So I'm not exactly, I think I do not fit the box of a travel influencer. But I've definitely put my reputation in danger by talking about controversial stuff. And in Pakistan, a lot of things are controversial. And a lot of people do have a lot of negative comments. So I've just kind of learned that you are not going to be liked by everyone. That does not mean you need to become diplomatic or you need to change your opinions and be scared of anything. I talk about not just travel, not just business, but I talk about life and moments and things that we always encounter. For example, during the COVID-19 quarantine situation, a lot of people got a little hostile, started hating a lot, bullying a lot, and talking about it. Some people might not agree, some people might agree, but when you do become an influencer of any sort, either travel or lifestyle or fashion, you need to understand you're putting yourself out there in front of, for example, 100 people. All 100 people are not going to like you, for sure. That is never going to happen. You're not perfect, and you need to embrace that and always be willing to learn in that position, because even as an influencer, you should be able to learn from your followers. But I'm quite impressed, honestly, that sharks are like dogs. Apparently, this is the first time I've heard it, and I can't wait. I can't wait actually to join you, Valentine, to on a diving trip or something where you can be like, oh yeah, just pet him like a dog, and the shark is going to be right in front of me, and I'm not going to be running scared out of the water. So I think in Pakistan, our dangers are different. We're putting our reputation in danger rather than our physical lives. So yeah, I think that's my take on that.
Yeah, you have human sharks to worry about. At least these can follow you online. At least Valentine, like your sharks, as soon as you leave, that's it, you're done with them.
I mean, I think that pretty much anybody that put themselves on social media has to deal with haters and the people that have something negative to say. And it's, as somebody told me, you can be the sweetest peach in the world. It's not everybody who's gonna like peach. So just keep doing you. And if people don't like it, it's too bad for them. And if they express it and send you hateful messages because they're unhappy, there's no other reason than that, because it's never successful and happy people who are going to lose their time sending or making a negative comment online. So just try to focus on that.
Yeah, that's true. That's good advice. So I think it's about time we conclude, but I want to conclude on a very positive note. I'm going to have like a very rapid fire question where I want to know, where are you looking forward to travel first, once this is eased down? I know some of you are traveling, but maybe you have a different destination. And also, what food are you looking forward to try that is not really typical from where you are? So maybe we start also in order, Valentine, then we go ahead.
I'm very looking forward to going in the Bahamas next week. I'm looking forward to finally get back to catching my own food instead of going to the fishmonger. And I'm looking very forward to eat all the fish I'm going to find.
Great. What about you, John?
Well, I'm very eager to visit Egypt, because that was planned in 2018, but there was some kind of civil uprising going in the moment. But yeah, that's my main goal, to visit the ancient part of the world. I don't know what kind of food they eat in Egypt. I think it's falafel, something like that.
It doesn't necessarily have to be in Egypt, but food that you're looking forward to try outside of where you're living.
Well, it doesn't matter, any kind of food, even if it goes against the norm or it's like politically incorrect. For example, I try to, as long as it's legal, I try to eat as many different types of foods as I can, simply because I know that it may not taste nicely, but I know it will enrich me as an experience. For example, I was eating whale in Norway, and I'm an animal lover. I adopt dogs. I help dog societies. And people ask me, why would you eat whale when you help other animals? And I was like, whales are legal to eat in Norway because they have a whale population control, and it's only a certain amount of whales, and they're overpopulated. So it's kind of normal there, and only there. I wouldn't eat whale anywhere else in the world, because only in Norway it is regulated. But just like I ate whale in Norway, I ate, an elk cheeseburger in Finland, or other kinds of animals, like a centipede in China.
So you would try anything.
I would try anything. I know that most times I will not like it, but at least I can say I did. And, in that part of the world, it's legal, and at least nobody else can tell me the experience.
Well, you do eat crickets for breakfast, do you?
Yeah, in Mexico we do. We call it chapulines. We mix it with sauce, but that's actually like chicken, just like chicken. There's nothing wrong about it.
I think they say everything tastes like chicken, and you should ask for kushari in Egypt.
Kushari.
We'll give you some. Yeah, kushari. It's like sort of the national thing that is known. Of course, a lot of other delicious food. What about you, Josh? Where are you looking forward to travel, and what are you looking forward to eat?
I'm very much looking forward to, so after Croatia, we go to Sicily, and it's just a huge soft spot for me. It's just beautiful. And I think they have the best street food in the world for sure. So the arancini balls, anyone, hopefully people have them.
That's really good.
Yeah, the vegetarian arancini balls are phenomenal. And I think there's something we always get every day because they're just that good. And yeah, if anyone's done Sicily or not, I really recommend Cefalù. Stunning place, and yeah, it's very much looking forward to going there. But I'm also really happy to be where I am right now in Croatia, and a lot more exploring to do here.
Perfect. I'm definitely Googling arancini once we get off the call. What about you, Anam? Where do you want to travel? What do you want to eat, if everything is permissible?
So during this quarantine, I have been binge watching this show on Netflix called The Street Food Asia. And I have been really badly craving to go just about anywhere in, maybe Bangkok, somewhere in Vietnam or Philippines, and just have like all the street food. I love Asian food, especially Thai food. So yeah, somewhere in Asia would be on the top of my list once everything gets over, and street food.
All right, yeah. Perfect. What about you, Safaa? Anything in particular?
I think just take me anywhere. I am done.
And feed me anything.
Feed me anything which is not cooked at home. I don't have to sanitize myself, or I don't have to think about where this person has been or ask for a test. Take me anywhere, feed me anything. I will be more than happy.
All right, perfect. I think I'm definitely like on board with you. Just take me anywhere and feed me anything. You know? I mean, not that we've been deprived of food. I think that's the most thing that we've been doing in this quarantine. So now I just want to have it outside in a very nice scenery rather than in front of my TV.
Definitely.
All right, I think Samar is here to help us.
Yes, I am back to help you guys close, because I'm thinking, while we're thinking, take me anywhere and let me eat anything. I think John is saying, let me sleep now.
No, I'm just starting.
Oh,
my
you're
day.
not? Okay, all right. So look, I had a couple of questions, okay, which somehow or the other, I couldn't seem to post them. So very quickly, I'm going to ask you guys. So what is the longest travel that you guys have done? Anybody can volunteer.
Oof.
Longest time away?
Longest time away is one question. Longest flight is another.
Longest time away, maybe in one place, maybe 6 months in Indonesia.
Okay.
But that's not terribly crazy. It's not terribly long, but I'm always going back and forth to the UK anyway.
Okay, what about the longest flight that you guys ever had to take? And that includes the stay over that you guys had to do, you know, in
16 and a half hours to
Wow.
Houston.
For one flight, though, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
One single flight.
And what is the least amount of sleep that you've had when you were traveling?
No sleep.
No sleep, yeah, for sure.
For how many days? How many days can you guys go without sleep? Has anybody
I
calculated?
don't think so. I don't think so. I can go more than a day, more than 24
Yeah,
hours.
same.
Not me.
I
Too old
definitely
now.
prioritize my sleep over anything else except maybe food. That's
But you know,
Pretty
nowadays,
much,
I
yeah.
think so much of us have been sleeping or eating or just watching Netflix. I think it's time to get out of our confined areas, right? But thank you so very much to everybody for sharing your experiences, because in a way, I think it's really important to keep our spirits high and, you know, just stay optimistic. When all of this is over, and very soon it will be, then of course we look forward to seeing some more new travels, new adventures from everybody. Thank you very, very much on behalf of Epiphany for being here with us. Thank you, Manal, for moderating such an excellent panel. And thank you to all you panelists. I think we're
Thank
looking
you.
forward to seeing
Thank
the world
you.
play out.
Thank you all.
Right.
A
Okay.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting.
Bye bye.
Okay.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.